Hello, 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 friends. Nicholas here with DIVO, TED Talks, Devoted Talks, where we take ancient wisdom and practices through a modern lens and experience so that we can help you and those you love and suffering in your experiences and your world and your life. Da 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 da. So what I want to talk about today? You just had an interesting experience with a client, and really reminded me a lot about Ayurveda. There is so much that we get so conditioned to do, like stuffing emotions, like pushing them aside, like holding them at bay until we feel like we have time to process them or feel them or express them. And then they become bunched up and so concentrated that they start manifesting as disease in the body. And we think we're trying to deal with the disease when in reality, we're just trying to deal with excess dosha and excess emotion. And that might be a little bit of an oversimplification, only in that that doesn't account for all of the dimensions and dynamics of being a human, right? We are three-dimensional being operating in a fourth and fifth dimension of energetics and experience that we start to become much more nuanced in what it is that is happening. It's not one for one, and it's not always 2 plus 2 equals 4. Yes, mathematically it does, but what does 2 plus 2 equal? Well, it depends on the our relationship with that experience, right? So like 2 plus 2 could remind you of math, which could cause you to feel stress, which could cause you to have an intense emotion in regards to it, whereas somebody else is just like, it's 4, and there's nothing to it for them. And yet, whose experience is more valid, right? In many ways, I think sometimes when we hear people who are either schizophrenic or have some kind of mental abnormality, that sometimes they're experiencing parts of the world that we're just not either sensitive to anymore or at all, or that we have learned to tune out. And so what I'm trying to say is that 2 plus 2 does equal 4, especially because we have agreed upon what numerics are and what they mean, right? But who decided on 2 being 2 or 2 becoming 4 initially, right? It's not just the name aspect of it, but, summation wise, you know, is 4 independent of 2? Is 2 plus 2 independent of 4? How does this all play out? And, that's what I'm trying to get at, is that we make the meaning of things. And in that making of the meaning, we then have experiences in relationship to that meaning. And so during our formative years, we develop a lot of relationship and a lot of programming that dictates how we see, how we interpret, and how we relate to things within our sphere, right? People who have survived trauma can be re-traumatized or have a reaction to certain situations that light that experience up in them again, whereas somebody else, it doesn't do anything, right? um and so whose experience is more valid? Both are valid, right? If you don't have a sensitivity to an experience or some kind of trigger, then you don't. But if you do, you do. And so what do we do with that? Well, one is we find a good balance in the world that allows people to have difference of experiences and to honor those difference of experiences, especially ones that are triggering. But that doesn't mean we have to bow down to them, right? I do think that there was an experience, a greater zeitgeist shift to where we were just overly acknowledging experience to the point that we weren't actually living in the moment, but rather trying to tiptoe around potentials. And while I believe that there is a space for that and there's a need for it, I think there is an approach that's nuanced that allows you to say, hey, if you are sensitive to traumatic things or violence, this may not be something that you want to watch. And you can put that out there rather than shaming or blaming people for being insensitive with regards to presenting something, right? So it's a fine line, and it's definitely, for lack of a better word, nuance, but it definitely can become overly restrictive when it doesn't need to be. It can be overly neutering when it doesn't have to be, because you can still honor each individual's experience and reactions by giving them the space to have them without forcing them to be one thing or the other. And then they can use their sovereignty to make a choice about it, right? Like pronouns. Like, I don't necessarily subscribe to the pronoun thing, but for myself, but in the greater scheme of things, if I can say it differently to honor somebody else and their individual expression, then what's the problem? Like, if I can remember or make an effort to change he or she to they, like what's the problem? Just like, I'm a part of the greater LGBT community, and I recently started a community class last year, and I put LGBTQIA plus to let people know through that little effort that they're just as welcome as any of the LGBT or T's, right? I mean, we don't always have to assume that it's implied. Like, sometimes we can take that extra little effort that doesn't cost anything to express it. And so, what am I doing with this knowledge? Recognizing that we are creating meaning. So if you make somebody's reaction to the way you approach something mean something, then it does. And so it is hard for me, because sometimes it is hard to not take criticism personally or as an attack, but you don't have to. That is your reaction to it. And what you could be exploring is, why am I reacting negatively to this? Why is this innocuous thing making me feel the way I did? I had an email come in from a group that was, about a sensitive subject, and it was making me feel a certain way. And I was like, well, why do you feel this way? If you don't really care that much, then why does it make you feel that way? And my resolution was, it was igniting levels of worthiness that haven't fully been dealt with yet. As if this person's opinion somehow made more or had more weight than my opinion of myself. And, I'm not even going to be delving into, you know, megalomania and like this careless disregard for anybody else's feedback about your life. But truly, why would their opinion about you matter more than your opinion about yourself? That's not to say that you don't hear it and you don't acknowledge it. But if you just completely dismiss everybody's feedback to you, why? Why would you do that? Is there a reason why you're avoiding it or trying to bypass it? I'll give one thing to our, current president of the United States. He is able to build a story and push away anything he doesn't want to think about and accept in only the things he wants to think about and that affirm who he believes himself to be. And if we could all be a little bit more like that, that would be great. But I do think what's lacking is we've really been lacking in the social skills that allow for us all individually to be able to sift and sort our identities and still show up within the context of community in a way that is building, or in a way that is reciprocal, instead of exclusivity or you're not welcome here type stances. And obviously you can hear my voice and or you can see on the video, I haven't fully fledged this idea, but I think most of you who are listening can probably catch what I'm trying to say. If you make the meaning of your world, and you do, if you don't like some of the things that you are interpreting or experiencing, why are you making that meaning what it is? Why does it feel that way? Why does it have to be an attack? Why does it have to be a judgment against me? Why does it have to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And the answer is because you make that meaning, because you have a belief within you through which all things are being sifted and sorted that are, playing out as whatever emotion you're having. But it's that sifting and sorting that was established sometimes between birth and 7 years old that you're still living out. That can change too. But it's going to take real examination and real time clearing of all the old so that you can get down to the baseline to choose new for you. Yeah, that was rhyme. Yeah. But you make meaning in your life. You make meaning for all things in the universe in your life. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way of the world. But what you do with that is your choice and how you show up within that framework. So, will you choose to believe that you can be well and be free? Why not? It is you who makes the meaning after all.